For centuries, the image of a lobster plunging into a boiling pot has been commonplace. This practice has been passed down through generations, becoming a symbol of culinary tradition and a staple in many coastal communities. We see it in restaurants and kitchens around the world, from high-end dining establishments to family-owned seafood shacks. The preparation of lobsters is often seen as a mark of culinary skill and sophistication. But what if this tradition was, in fact, an act of immense cruelty? What if the very act of boiling lobsters alive, a method believed to preserve their flavor and texture, was causing them unbearable suffering? What if those lobsters, thrashing in the scalding water, were experiencing agonizing pain? Their frantic movements and desperate attempts to escape the boiling water suggest a level of distress that is hard to ignore. This is the question that scientists, animal welfare advocates, and even lawmakers are now grappling with. Recent studies have shown that lobsters, along with other crustaceans, possess complex nervous systems and may be capable of feeling pain. The call to ban boiling lobsters alive is growing louder, fueled by compelling evidence that these creatures are sentient and capable of suffering. Activists are taking to the streets, holding signs and demanding change, while scientists continue to study the extent of lobster sentience. This isn't just about squeamishness. It's about a fundamental shift in our understanding of animal welfare and ethics. People are beginning to question long-held beliefs and traditions, wondering if there is a more humane way to enjoy seafood. It's about acknowledging the very real possibility that we've been wrong, that our practices, once thought to be harmless, may actually be causing significant suffering to these creatures. For too long, we've treated these complex beings as nothing more than food items. Their lives, reduced to mere commodities, have been overlooked in the pursuit of culinary delight. But science is telling us a different story. Research is revealing that lobsters have intricate behaviors and responses that suggest a capacity for pain and distress, a story that demands our attention and compels us to rethink our relationship with the creatures we share this planet with. As we learn more about the sentience of lobsters and other animals, we are faced with a moral imperative to change our ways and adopt more humane practices. The United Kingdom took a significant step in 2022 by officially recognizing crustaceans and cephalopods as sentient beings. This landmark decision was based on a comprehensive review of over 300 scientific studies. These studies provided strong evidence that these animals experience a range of emotions, including pain, distress, and even pleasure. However, a glaring contradiction exists within UK law. Despite acknowledging their sentience, there is currently no ban on boiling lobsters alive. This means that a practice considered inhumane for other sentient beings remains perfectly legal for crustaceans. This legal gray area has sparked outrage and fueled the campaign for stricter animal welfare regulations. In a powerful display of unity, a coalition of scientists, lawyers, and animal welfare charities have joined forces. They have issued an open letter to the UK government demanding an immediate ban on boiling lobsters alive. This letter, signed by some of the most respected voices in their fields, is a stark reminder that this issue is not going away. The letter argues that the current legislation is out of step with scientific understanding and public sentiment. It highlights the overwhelming evidence of crustacean sentience and the inherent cruelty of boiling them alive. The authors urged the government to close the legal loophole and extend the same protections afforded to other sentient beings to lobsters, crabs, and their kin. The assertion that crustaceans feel pain is not based on sentimentality, but on a growing body of scientific evidence. Over the past few decades, researchers have delved deep into the behavioral and physiological responses of these fascinating creatures, uncovering compelling data that challenges our previous assumptions. Studies have shown that these animals exhibit behavioral and physiological responses to painful stimuli that are consistent with pain perception in other animals, including humans. For instance, when exposed to harmful conditions, crustaceans display reactions that are not merely reflexive but indicative of a more complex experience of discomfort. For example, when subjected to electric shocks, crabs learn to avoid the area where the shock occurred. This avoidance behavior is a clear sign that they are capable of associating a specific location with a negative experience, much like higher animals do. This demonstrates an ability to learn from negative experiences, a hallmark of sentience. Such learning behavior is not just a simple reflex, but involves memory and decision-making processes, suggesting a level of cognitive function that was previously underestimated in these creatures. Dr. Robert Elwood, a leading expert in crustacean behavior, states, "There is now strong evidence that crustaceans can experience pain and suffering." His extensive research has been pivotal in shifting the scientific community's perspective on this issue. They possess the necessary nervous system complexity and exhibit behaviors that are consistent with a pain response. The intricate structure of their nervous systems allows them to process and react to harmful stimuli in ways that are strikingly similar to more traditionally recognized sentient beings. These findings shatter the long-held assumption that crustaceans are incapable of feeling pain, forcing us to confront the ethical implications of our actions. As we continue to explore the depths of animal cognition and sentience, it becomes increasingly clear that our treatment of these creatures must be reevaluated. The way we handle, cook, and consume crustaceans could be seen in a new light, prompting discussions about humane practices and potential changes in legislation to protect their welfare. Section 5. Legal loopholes. Existing laws and why they fall short. The UK's Welfare of Animals at the Time of Killing, England, Regulations 2015 or WATOC, outlines acceptable methods for killing animals for human consumption. This regulation was a significant step forward in animal welfare, aiming to minimize the suffering of animals during slaughter. However, it primarily focuses on livestock such as cows, pigs, and chickens, leaving a significant gap when it comes to aquatic animals, particularly crustaceans like lobsters and crabs. However, these regulations are outdated and do not adequately protect crustaceans. Crustaceans, despite being sentient beings capable of feeling pain, are often overlooked in animal welfare laws. The scientific community has increasingly recognized the complex nervous systems of these creatures, which allow them to experience pain and distress. While the regulations prohibit causing avoidable pain to animals, they do not explicitly ban boiling lobsters alive. This method of cooking is still widely practiced, despite evidence suggesting that it causes significant suffering. The lack of specific guidelines for the humane treatment of crustaceans during slaughter highlights a critical oversight in current legislation. The Animal Welfare Sentience Act 2022, while groundbreaking in its recognition of crustacean sentience, does not yet translate into specific legal protections regarding slaughter methods. This act acknowledges that animals, including crustaceans, are sentient beings capable of experiencing feelings and sensations. However, the act falls short in providing concrete measures to ensure their humane treatment during slaughter. This discrepancy between scientific understanding and legal protection has created a critical need for legislative reform. Scientists and animal welfare advocates are calling for updated laws that reflect the latest research on animal sentience and pain. They argue that the current legal framework is insufficient and fails to protect crustaceans from unnecessary suffering. The current laws, while well-intentioned, are simply not enough to protect these animals from unnecessary suffering. There is a growing movement to push for more comprehensive and specific regulations that would ensure the humane treatment of all animals, including crustaceans, during slaughter. Until such reforms are made, these sentient beings will continue to endure avoidable pain and distress. The good news is that humane alternatives to boiling lobsters alive already exist. These methods prioritize minimizing pain and distress, ensuring a quick and relatively painless death. One such method is electrocution using a specialized device that delivers a high-voltage shock, rendering the animal instantly unconscious. Another humane method is known as ikijime, a Japanese technique that involves swiftly destroying the lobster's brain with a sharp spike. This method, while requiring skill and precision, is considered highly effective in minimizing suffering. By adopting these alternatives, we can enjoy seafood without inflicting unnecessary pain on the creatures we consume. The debate surrounding boiling lobsters alive is not about demonizing those who enjoy seafood. It's about encouraging all of us to think critically about where our food comes from and the impact our choices have on other living beings. It's about acknowledging that our actions have consequences, and that even small changes in our behavior can make a difference. Next time you're at a restaurant or planning a meal, take a moment to consider the lobster. Ask yourself if the momentary pleasure of a meal justifies the potential for immense suffering. By making informed choices, we can create a more compassionate and just food system. The debate surrounding the treatment of crustaceans is part of a much larger conversation about our relationship with the natural world. As we learn more about the cognitive abilities and emotional lives of animals, we are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about our own behavior. We can no longer claim ignorance. We must acknowledge the sentience of other species and treat them with the respect and compassion they deserve. This requires a fundamental shift in our thinking, a move away from an anthropocentric worldview to one that recognizes the intrinsic value of all life on Earth. The evidence is clear. Crustaceans feel pain, and boiling them alive is inhumane. The time has come for the UK government to align its laws with scientific understanding and public sentiment. We must urge our lawmakers to enact a ban on this cruel practice and promote the use of humane alternatives. But this is not just a matter for governments to address. Each of us has a role to play. By supporting sustainable seafood practices, educating ourselves and others about animal welfare, and making conscious choices about the food we consume, we can create a world where all creatures, great and small, are treated with the dignity and compassion they deserve. The choice is ours.